this fight looks like a lot of fun. Honestly, I had a blast testing it. It looks great. Mythic looks high execution factor, but fairly simple. So this fight is kind of like, what do I want to say? Kind of like Smolderon, I guess, where like the mechanics happen relatively quickly in succession, or kind of like Tindral like that. And it's just all about executing fairly simple mechanics that are punishing to fail. So on both Heroic, I believe Heroic and Mythic both follow the same exact ability pattern. So there's very few changes. The first thing that happens is people are going to get this debuff. So on Heroic, 3 people will get it. And it's I don't remember how far into the fight, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, something like that. It's called Assassination. Boom, 10 seconds. So on Heroic, 3 people are going to get this debuff. You'll see the terrible markers we have out on the room. What this debuff is going to do is once it runs out, it is going to basically, an ad is going to come down and hit you. And wherever that ad lands, or that image lands, is where it's going to stay. That's important because the next mechanic that's going to happen is basically void portals that are going to suck you to the position of those images and kill you if you get touched, if you touch them. Now, every single person who has this debuff is going to spawn one of those images, so there's going to be a portal at each one of those locations. So the idea would be equally spread them out around the boss so that they all pull you in equal directions, and you basically get pulled nowhere, and you're standing in the middle and you get to chill. That actually turns out to be harder on Heroic than on Mythic. The difference on Mythic is that instead of 3, you get 5, and you always get 5 throughout the entire fight. That actually turns out to be fairly easy, because then you just put 5 of them on points and the boss on one other point, and then you are evenly spread. On Heroic, unfortunately, since you only get 3 on pull, you can actually just like kind of wing it, and people are really bad at winging it in pugs at least. But there you go, we actually got it right this time. You want a relatively equidistant triangle for your 3 marks, and there is the image that spawns, and he is going to chill there because the boss is going to cast his next ability, Nether Rift. So there's your void portals. The boss will also spawn a portal. The boss's portal, at least from the Heroic testing that I did, does not pull you. The other ones do. Don't know if that's true on Mythic or if that was just a bug. But you are equidistant from your things, and they're all going to suck you in. Now, I blinked out at the last second because I remembered, if you got this mechanic, you will also get a debuff that after 10 seconds will explode and shoot orbs out of you. This has since changed, so it now has an animation for the direction that the orbs are going to shoot out. Debuff's right here, it's got like 1 second left. In the first testing, it didn't have an animation, and the orbs spawned at intercardinal directions, so northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest. That is no longer true. They spawn in 3 directions that seem to be random, which is unfortunate because then you can't like purposely not hit the raid. When it was this way, you could basically stand outside the group and face the raid, and they would never go through the raid, but it seems that that's not true anymore, so you kind of just have to wing it. But you will get an indicator with 3 lines of to where the orbs are going to shoot out. So basically, if you dropped one of these portals, you have to stay out of the group during the suck, because the suck starts like half a second before the orbs actually fire out of you. So it's a fairly difficult overlap to deal with. And while this is all happening, you're taking damage from the debuff, you're taking damage from the suck. So good time for a defensive. This entire raid is just like fuck you melee, but this fight specifically on Mythic is like play 0 melee. So yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you get targeted by a mechanic, yeah, you're not allowed to be on the boss anymore for like 10 seconds.
Yeah, it's not even that, because there's extra on Mythic where you literally have to get off the boss or you will die. So
yeah,
the charges. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, if you get the mechanic, you kind of are just effed as melee because you have to go out, place it, you come back in for like 5 seconds, then you run out again to shoot the orbs, and then you go back to boss. And then the next thing that's going to happen, so the images are still where they were originally placed, is like Schnack said, they are going to, each one of them is going to target one person, and they're going to dash to that person at the end of 5 or 6 seconds. There. If you're not targeted by one, these are all blue. If you are targeted by one, your line only will be red. So that is your indicator that you are targeted. I believe they are private auras. They were at testing. I believe they still are. So on heroic, the idea would be to try and keep your ad in the same position or in the same area that it currently is in. Therefore, you would want to, if say Desdal is targeted by this one, he would want to get as close to this ad as possible, if not like right behind it, so it just goes backwards a little bit and gives us a little bit more room. That's the idea. Obviously, getting Pugs to do that in practice is fairly difficult. They did a good job of at least getting out of the raid, but he should be like over here. The reason being is these guys are going to dash, and wherever they land next is where their next void portals and sucks are going to be. So what's going to happen here is both of these are going to dash to the same area. So now we're going to have 2 portals over here. We're going to be heavy to that side, and we're going to get pulled harder. So it's going to be harder to pull against it. So on heroic, the idea is just if you're targeted by this, get as close to your ad as possible. They have a minimum charge distance, so even if you're on top of them, they're going to go like 5 or 10 yards. So it would be best to be like this guy and be like facing it backwards away from the raid, so it moves farther away from the group. He tries to get over at the last second. Boom, it goes through you, and that's where it lands. So now we have these 2, and we have 1 over there. There. What I'm currently doing is trying to bait the next mechanic, which doesn't seem to work. But, so they dash, and then the next thing they're going to do is throw out knives, daggers, like Sylvanas, if you did that. And we'll see it here. They'll do it one by one. So boss will do it first, then one image will target a player. He doesn't actually target a player, but it's targeted at a player. And then the next one will do one, and then the next one will do one. Oh yeah. If anyone is hit by this dash, including the people who are targeted by it, they will also get the debuff that shoots out orbs from them in 10 seconds. So if you accidentally dash it through people, everyone who gets hit will get the debuff that shoots out orbs in 10 seconds and probably murder everybody. So all those people who just got hit and just ran back into the group in 10 seconds, they're going to shoot off orbs, which again, nobody's really paying attention to. You can see this guy over here, he has it. I think one of the other ones is over there, and one of them is like directly in the middle of the group. Because boom, there he goes.
Yeah.
And then it immediately goes back into the next iteration. So it is, again, just like the other fights that we've looked at in a pattern. The pattern is set. The pattern is always exactly the same with the exact same timers no matter what. So again, you can pre-plan everything in this fight. Unfortunately, though, doesn't make the execution any easier. The pattern is going to be debuffs come out to spawn the images. They get spawned. They do the Nether portal suck. During the Nether portal suck, the orbs explode out of people who have the debuffs. Then there's a pause. Then they will do the dashes. Then they will do the daggers. During the daggers, the orbs will spawn from the people who got hit by the dashes. And then it will repeat again. You will go back into the void portals, which is happening now. And then after this, you're going to have dashes again. And then you're going to have daggers again. So it's just that repeat over and over and over. So next we're going to have dashes. There we go. Get them out. One person is just pointing that straight through the group. So some people are going to get hit extra. 2 people did it actually. Like all of Melee currently has these debuffs that are going to shoot out orbs. It's going to be a fun time. And then you get daggers. And during this, the orbs are going to explode and go everywhere. And does he do one more portal? No. On Mythic, he does a 3rd Void Suck, I believe. It looks like on Heroic, he doesn't. He goes straight into Intermission. Intermission is really easy. You just live for, 24 seconds. He just does the rotating pattern on the ground and blaze lines. At least on testing, the blaze lines didn't hit that hard. The pattern on the floor, though, will do significant damage, but not one-shot you. and you're just running around doing this. The funny part on this phase is actually if you have a bunch of people dead, so later in the fight, the same number of blaze lines are going to go out no matter how many people are alive. So say you have one person left, he's going to get every single blaze line, so he will have like 10 blaze lines on him at a time. So that's enjoyable. But yeah, you're just dodging, you're doing the fight, and then it repeats. And just like the last boss that we saw, after intermission on heroic, you will now get 4 images instead of 3. So when he does his assassination ability, which should be after this, Void Shredders, 4 people get debuffs. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now you want to make a square, which we kind of failed to do. Got kind of close. Now you're going to have 4 void rifts. You're going to have 4 dashes. You're going to have 4 images throwing out daggers. Well, 5 void rifts because the boss does one as well. We did a relatively good job, so we're still really just getting pulled into the middle of the room, which is nice. And then the next will be dashes. Again, the idea is to try and get yours as close to your ad as possible. This guy is very far away. This guy is far away. You want to be like right up next to them, like doing Farrak Blaze or Baits, so that they are staying in their same relative position, so that it makes the void pulls easier for us. The daggers are just a dodge. There's not really much to do about that. You just have to dodge them. Now this is going to be a difficult void pull because we have 2 right on top of each other there. We have 1 there, very close to the group overall. But we got kind of lucky with the far one over there. And that's the whole fight. It just repeats like that. You're going to get dashes again. You're going to get daggers again. And he doesn't do a 3rd void suck on heroic. On mythic he does. So yes, this is a very unfriendly melee fight. Basically everything requires you to dodge or potentially move off the boss, and it is only horrendously worse on mythic. So I think I still have potentially instant dollars mythic test of this, which they actually didn't figure out how to do it well, which was interesting. But we can hopefully show that. Let me see if I can find it. I don't have it still up anymore. That's unfortunate. So the big difference on mythic is there's only one mechanical difference technically, and that is that the ads that spawn will have a buff on them. So some of them will be red. Okay, well, there's 2 differences. One, in mythic you get 5 ads every phase. It doesn't increase in number, you just always have 5. And then the other difference is that some of those ads, which is what increases every phase, will be red. They'll have a buff. What that is going to do is basically those red ads have to go through the boss. If all of those do not go through the boss by the time the intermission happens, you instantly die. That is important because every time they go through the boss, they give the boss a buff, which does damage. Alright, I did find the video. They just died. Did they get another pull in? Alright, so let's see. So we'll go back to pull. So it's going to be relatively the same ability timing. Soon after pull, about 10 seconds in, they're going to get 5 debuffs to spawn images. So there's your 5. you're going to 5 markers, and you're going to have the boss on the other one pretty much. Immediately after these spawn, you can then see which ones are red, and they will also do this weird pulse to like show you. So these ones are the ones that are buffed. So these 3 are going to have to go through the boss. The other trick is that you can never have 3 or more of them go through the boss at the same time. If you do, the boss gets a 30% damage increase that lasts for the rest of the fight. Every time one of these ads goes through the boss, he gets a 10% damage increase for 10 seconds. And that stacks. So you pretty much always have at least 2 of them get dashed through the boss. So he will always gain a 20% damage increase for 10 seconds. If you have a 3rd one go through, he gains 30% for the rest of the fight, which you will have to do at the very end of the fight. So the idea is here. You have 5 debuffs, you drop them all, you immediately look to see which ads are buffed to know where you then need to move the boss. So you're going to have the suck next, but you're going to want to move the boss either before the suck or immediately after the suck to in between 2 of the ads that you want to dash through the boss. That way, the other 3 ads, the people who are targeted by them, can just go to where the ads are like you would on Heroic and keep them still. The 2 people who are targeted by the ads that you want to dash through the boss will go to the opposite marker. So if you're on X, or if you're targeted by X, you go to star. If you're targeted by star, you go to X, and you make sure they dash through the boss. So this is the new updated animation, by the way, for the orbs. It shows up like 3 or 4 seconds before the orbs are going to go out, and you have your 3 lines. I actually think they might be based off of the direction that the ad hits you. So that's another thing, is when the ad is spawning from you, he actually comes in from behind you and is going to stay behind you. So if you think of like where the ad is going to spawn, it's actually at the back edge of this circle from wherever you're facing. So if you're like late getting over to your spot, you should turn around right before he spawns so that he will spawn behind you. But you'll see they come in from the back, they hit you, they stand there. Now this guy was facing directly this way when he got hit, and I think that's actually going to be the front of his orbs when they spawn. So you'll see there's the front of the orbs. And they're getting sucked and the orbs are going off just like Heroic. No difference there. And then after this, you see the dash timer is going off in like 3 seconds. So we would actually want to pull the boss in between the 2 ads that we want to dash, like immediately after the pull ends, so that he's already in position now. Because now everybody's targeted by the dashes and you want them to be able to move their dashes properly. They weren't doing this because on this testing, the mechanic where if 3 of these buffed ones go through the boss at the same time, he gets permanent buffed, was not happening. So that was a mechanic that they actually added afterwards to stop you from dashing all ads through the boss at once. So what you're going to see is them just keep it in the middle, and they're just going to have every single ad go through the boss so that they don't have to worry about the thought process of which ad needs to go through and which doesn't, which is smart. But that is no longer possible. So the ads go through the boss, he starts pulsing AoE. I think they actually missed one, maybe. But yeah, that is the difference. So obviously, while the ads are dashing through the boss, nobody can be on the boss, because if they get hit by the dash, they will get the orb debuff and shoot out orbs as well. So every single person has to get off the boss, including melee, so fuck you melee, you're doing no damage.
Good.
So to recap, yeah, if you get the ad spawn debuff, you must leave the boss as melee and then go back to the boss, and then you will have an orb that will shoot out of you in 10 seconds, so you have to get off the boss again. Meanwhile, the boss will be sucking, so you won't be able to be on the boss because he's probably not in position for you to hit. And then immediately after that, you have dashes that go through the boss. If you're targeted by those, you have to get off the boss to move your dash to the right place. If you're not targeted by them, you have to get off the boss anyway because they're going through the boss and you can't get hit by them.
Surely these will prefer range targets, right?
No. Get fucked.
Like, we really just don't want melee in this.
Yeah.
Also, Odie, you keep calling this boss a him. It's clearly a princess.
I do not care. I do not see gender. Twisted just got wrecked by orbs. But yeah, other than that, the fight's exactly the same, right? Woohoo! Daggers, orbs, everything happening. You just have 5 of them happening every phase instead of 3, then 4, then 5. And on Mythic, as I said, the ads that are buffed, you will have 3 at the start of the fight, then you will have 4 in phase 2 and 5 in phase 3. That means that in phase 1, you will have 2 ads dash through the boss, and then since you get 2 dashes each phase, the first dash you'll have 2 ads dash through, and then you'll have the final ad dash through. In P2, you will do 2 and 2, so you will take a lot of damage each time, because when they go through the boss, his AoE hurts really bad. In P3, you will do 2 and then 3, and on that second dash that hits 3, the boss will then have a permanent damage buff. The other thing is, if you get to the end of the 3rd intermission, so after that final dash, the boss kills you at 6 minutes, like Ragalon.
Hell yeah, brother.
So on Heroic, you have a hard 6-minute timer. On Mythic, you have a hard 6-minute timer, plus for the last however many seconds, 40 seconds of the fight, the boss has a 30% damage increase for the entire time.
So, surely, well, I guess it depends on how hard it trucks, but it may be like a lust on the end of the fight, perhaps.
I don't know. You might just want to lust on pull for CDs to get as much damage as possible, so that hopefully you don't last that long. But maybe, because this like entire intermission, the boss will be buffed by 30% at the end there. I just don't know if it'll be worth it to use lust when either people don't have all their CDs or are moving around like crazy like this. It's a shitty lust anyway, because if you lust on pull, lust is 40 seconds, debuff goes out at 10 seconds, so you have 5 people moving at the 10-second mark where they're not casting or hitting the boss if they're melee. And then like every 7 seconds after that, something is happening to keep you from doing damage, so.
I guess it depends on how hard the heal check is at the end.
Yeah. Hopefully like a 30% damage increase won't be too bad at the end of the fight. You'll see that like most people aren't taking damage a lot of the time. Like the only raid-wide damages are the pulls happening and on Mythic, the AoE from the ads dashing through the boss. So by the way, you can see the 4 ads here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we would want to either pull the boss between green and purple or between orange and X for the dashes. They are just going to send shit through, I believe, and maybe miss 1 on purpose or miss 2 on purpose. They didn't do a very good job of testing this, to be honest. Of aiming, at least, I should say. So yeah, that's the fight. It's really got like 3 mechanics. You place ads for orbs, you get sucked, you position dashes, 4 mechanics, and you dodge daggers. That's kind of it. They just happen very quickly, and they happen continuously throughout the fight without stopping.